The scent of rosemary stuffing mingled with simmering tension inside my parents' sleek lakefront estate in Minneapolis. I smoothed the front of my dark green sweater dress, department store clearance, something my sister-in-law Talia would no doubt mention later, and slipped into my usual spot at the far end of the custom walnut dining table. The quiet one's seat, the one I'd occupied since college. "Danielle, sweetheart," my mother called out, perched near the centerpiece turkey with her trademark blend of warmth and judgment. "How's that little desk job going?" "It's good, Mom. Still with a private equity firm," I said calmly, spooning cranberry sauce onto my plate. Talia gave a sharp little laugh. "She means she's still someone's assistant, right?" My brother Nathan choked into his Pinot Noir, barely containing his smirk. "Danielle works at Hadley & Co., remember? She's the one behind the phone line." The room chuckled. 5 years. That's how long they'd called me invisible, irrelevant, a glorified secretary. Meanwhile, I'd quietly founded NovaCore Systems, a startup that now powered data infrastructures for 3 Fortune 100s and was valued at over $3.1 billion, 0 cents. "She does what she can," Aunt Marla offered with the soft, pitying tone of someone praising a rescue dog. "In this market, holding any job is a blessing." Nathan leaned forward. "You know, we just landed that massive deal with Archway Capital. Closed last Tuesday. Biggest deal of the quarter." He looked around for applause. He got it. I stirred my cider, masking a smile. The deal he was bragging about? I'd greenlit it. Through a holding firm no one at his company traced back to me. Nathan spent 2 months wooing a woman named E. Delano on email. That was me, using my middle name and a hired proxy for meetings. Dad raised his glass. "Now that's real business. Not just typing memos and picking up lattes." Mom nodded. "Danielle, maybe your brother can help you find something more substantial. You've always had potential, dear." I looked around the table. They still had no idea. NovaCore had just hit the Forbes list. Our AI division had signed a defense contract last week. We weren't just growing. We were changing the world, quietly. Until now. But they didn't know that. They didn't know the quiet daughter they dismissed had just signed a deal worth more than their combined net worth. "I'm fine where I am," I said evenly, folding my napkin. "The work suits me." Talia, Nathan's trophy wife, decked in gold and artificial charm, let out a dry laugh. "That's the problem, Danielle. You're always fine, never great, never bold." She sipped her wine like punctuation. "No ambition, no drive, just stable, quiet. Like you're allergic to standing out." The table hummed with soft agreement. Even the younger cousins, once wide-eyed when I visited during college, now looked at me the way you'd look at a mall kiosk worker. Background noise. What they didn't know was that tomorrow morning Fortune would release its annual 500 list. And with it, the carefully preserved image of Danielle Mercer, invisible assistant, would implode. The thought made the stuffing taste better. "Speaking of real success," Nathan added, swirling his bourbon as if it made his words more valuable, "we're about to close the deal on the Peterson portfolio. Finally outbid that mystery firm that's been buying everything up." I nearly choked on my cider. The Peterson account, a $1.2 billion 0-cent asset bundle my holding company had just secured. This morning, Nathan's team had spent 3 months trying to outmaneuver my acquisition pipeline. They never saw me coming. David, my youngest cousin, the one glued to his phone, suddenly froze. His eyes widened as he stared at the screen, then up at me, then back again. "Holy," he muttered, loud enough for the room to go silent. "Language," Aunt Marla snapped, but David ignored her. "Danielle," he said slowly, "why is your face on Fortune's website?" Forks paused mid-air, napkins dropped. Nathan lunged toward David's phone, but he held it back, reading aloud. NovaCore Systems founder and CEO Danielle Mercer debuts on Fortune 500 list. Tech visionary behind the $3.2 billion 0 cents AI powerhouse. You could hear the breath drained from the room. I calmly set my fork down, watching my brother's smug grin disintegrate. My mother's posture sagged. Even Talia's wineglass hovered mid-air, forgotten. 3 billion? My father stammered. That's not possible. Your secretary. I smiled and reached for my leather tote. Actually, I said, pulling out the advance copy of Fortune with my face on the cover, the market's been kind. We're closer to 3.5 now. The turkey was getting cold, but I had never enjoyed Thanksgiving more. The silence that followed was the loudest validation of my life. The silence was broken only by the soft thud of Talia's wineglass hitting the linen tablecloth, leaving a spreading crimson stain on Mom's perfectly pressed white runner. "This is a joke," Nathan finally choked out, panic rising in his voice. "Some kind of elaborate prank." I reached into my bag and retrieved my phone. With a few taps, I opened an interface few people even knew existed. A private wealth management platform reserved for individuals with 8- and 9-figure portfolios. "Would you like to see the numbers, Nathan?" I asked, turning the screen toward him. "Or should we talk about the Peterson account you think you're closing next week?" The color drained from his face. "That was you?" "Novacore Systems now owns 60% of the Peterson portfolio," I said smoothly. "We closed the acquisition this morning, though I have to commend your team's effort. You only overpaid by about $200 million. 0 cents. Dad's hands tightened around the edge of the table, knuckles white. "But your job at Hadley & Co.? That's real?" "It is," I nodded. "I do work there. I just never mentioned that I own it. Bought the firm 3 years ago through one of my shell companies." I gave Nathan a small nod. "Technically, you've been working for me this whole time." The roasted turkey sat untouched. Aunt Marla's fork slipped from her hand, clattering loudly against her porcelain plate. David, still glued to his phone, was furiously scrolling. His eyes widened with every swipe. "Holy crap," he breathed. "You're her, the anonymous CEO behind Novacore, the one all the tech blogs have been speculating about, the AI genius who's reshaping the entire sector." Mom finally found her voice, though it shook. "Why didn't you ever tell us? We're your family." I met her gaze without flinching. "You mean the family that told me I'd never make it in business? The brother who said I was too timid to lead? Or the sister-in-law who told me I should just marry rich because I'd never be rich?" Dad looked down. "We were just trying to protect you." "No," I said calmly. "You were trying to define me. Trying to keep me in that quiet little corner where I couldn't threaten the image you had of success." My phone buzzed. Another alert from my CFO. Novacore's stock had just jumped 12% in after-house trading. The Peterson deal was already making waves. Nathan stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. "I need to call the office." "They're closed for Thanksgiving," I said mildly. "But don't worry, I already notified the board." If you've ever been underestimated in a room full of people who thought they knew your worth, hit that subscribe button. Danielle's story isn't over yet, and in the next part, the boardroom faces the family table. "The termination papers won't be delivered until Monday," I said quietly. Nathan froze. "Termination?" "Novacore has a zero-tolerance policy for insider trading," I replied, pulling up the document on my phone. "Your recent activities with the Helix Trust Fund violated multiple SEC regulations. As your employer, through Hadley & Co., I'm required to report it." "You're firing me." His voice cracked. "Danielle, your own brother?" I looked at him without flinching. "No, Nathan. I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference." Talia stood up sharply, her silk dress catching the candlelight. "You vindictive little—" "Careful," I said, cutting her off with a raised eyebrow. "Your prenup includes a morality clause. Nathan's illegal activity could void it. Though given his likely legal battles ahead, there may not be much left to claim anyway." The room erupted. Mom began crying silently, shoulders trembling. Dad looked like someone had turned the gravity up on his spine. My cousins were whispering in urgent huddles, while Aunt Marla crossed herself like we'd just lived through a divine judgment. I stood and brushed a faint wrinkle from my dress. "I should go," I said evenly. "I've got an early briefing with our Singapore division. We're finalizing an AI acquisition. You understand. Wait, Dad called, his voice suddenly hoarse. Please, we can fix this. As a family. I paused in the doorway, hand on the oak frame. Was it family when you canceled my college fund because I chose to study software engineering instead of finance? When you spread the rumor that I was having a breakdown after I quit my job to freelance code? When you shorted NovaCore stock the year we launched? Mom whispered, we didn't know. Exactly, I said. You never asked. You never wanted to know. I scanned the faces at the table, every one of them looking more like strangers than ever. You spent years worshiping Nathan's mediocrity and ridiculing my silence. You didn't realize the quiet one was building something bigger than this family could imagine. Then David, sweet, distracted David, looked up from his phone. The Elevate Foundation, the one funding STEM programs for kids. That's you, isn't it? I nodded once. Someone had to break the cycle of arrogance and gatekeeping. Might as well be the family failure. My phone buzzed. Miss Mercer, your car is waiting. My driver. Don't go like this, Mom pleaded. Stay, talk to us. I have, I said, turning. You just never listened. But don't worry, now you will. It's harder to ignore a billionaire than a secretary. As I stepped into the night, I heard Nathan's phone ring. Probably his broker. Finally reading the numbers. By tomorrow morning, when the news broke about Nathan's insider trading, he'd have far bigger problems than being upstaged by his quiet sister. I paused beside the car, glancing back at the lakefront house where I'd grown up feeling invisible. Through the window, I saw them still frozen around the table. Wine spilled, turkey untouched, lives unraveling. One dinner, one truth. And everything they thought they knew had changed. My driver opened the door. Where to, Ms. Mercer? I smiled. The office, I said. It's time to finish what I started, because this was never just about revenge. It was about reinvention, reshaping an entire industry, and doing it on my terms. The morning after Thanksgiving, my face was everywhere. Forbes, Bloomberg, the Wall Street Journal, all running features on the reclusive tech founder who had quietly built a multi-billion-dollar empire while the world wasn't watching. The Quiet Revolution, one headline read. If they only knew. I sat in my real office, not the modest cubicle at Hadley & Co., but the entire penthouse floor of NovaCore Tower in downtown Minneapolis. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around me, overlooking a city I'd helped transform with data, capital, and machine learning. Jessica, my assistant, set down my coffee. Your mother's called 6 times. Your father's trying to get in touch with the board. And Nathan? She didn't need to finish. I pulled up the tablet. SEC investigates hedge fund for trading violations. The article was tactful. The reality? Brutal. Jessica glanced at the lobby camera. The family lawyers are here, demanding a meeting. I took a sip of coffee. Let them wait. We have real work to do. My phone buzzed. A message from David. Holy shit, cuz. Just saw the stock. Why didn't you tell me? I smiled, thinking back to the awe in his voice last night. Unlike the others, David had always asked about my projects. Read about my industry. Understood just enough to be curious. Maybe it was time to bring him in, for real. Miss Mercer, Jessica interrupted. Singapore deal's ready for sign-off. I turned to the screens lining the far wall. Live dashboards tracking AI performance across 4 continents. Another milestone. Another domino falling into place. While they thought I was answering phones, I was reprogramming the future. The intercom buzzed. Your brother's wife is here. She's insistent. Send her up, I said, setting down my cup. Let's finish what last night started. Talia swept into the room moments later like a designer hurricane. Heels, rage, and entitlement colliding in one final performance. And this time, I was ready for her. All branded fury and expensive indignation, Talia stormed in like a curated tempest. But the moment she took in the vast expanse of my office, wall-to-wall glass, panoramic skyline, polished steel, and quiet authority, she stopped short. Her stilettos clicked once against the marble floor before she spoke. "You destroyed him," she hissed. "Your own brother?" "No," I said evenly, rising from my chair. "Nathan destroyed himself. I just refused to clean up the mess this time. He's facing criminal charges." "He's facing consequences," I corrected, something this family has always been particularly skilled at avoiding. She threw a thick envelope onto my desk. "His career is over. Everything we built, everything you stole," I cut in. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice? The quiet one sees everything." Her mouth twitched, her composure wobbling. "The offshore accounts, the embezzlement, the shell companies masking client siphoning. You and Nathan defrauded investors." She blinked, stunned. "How did you find out?" "I own 3 of the banks you used, and 2 of the audit firms you thought would cover your tracks. When you're quietly building an empire, you learn to observe before you strike." She looked pale now. "What do you want?" I returned to my seat and neatly stacked the morning reports. "Nothing. I have everything I need." She swallowed hard. "Then why?" "What you should be asking is what you're going to do now. Nathan's assets are frozen. The prenup you leaned on won't survive a fraud conviction." Talia sank into the chair across from me. Her dress, haute couture and hopelessly wrinkled now, looked oddly out of place in this space. "You planned everything," she said softly. "That's what the quiet ones do," I said. "We don't react. We prepare." My phone buzzed. A market alert. Novacor stock up 15%. The Peterson acquisition was now public. The industry was watching. "There is one path forward," I said slowly. "If you want to salvage anything." She looked up. "What?" "Tell the truth, all of it. Cooperate with the SEC, help them dismantle the full scheme. In return, I'll make sure you're left with enough to start again. Away from here. Quietly." "You'd really do that? After everything?" "I'm not doing it for you," I said. "I'm doing it for what's right. Someone in this family should finally choose integrity over illusion." She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. 30 minutes later, Talia walked out with a folder of documents that would fast-track federal indictments. As she left, Jessica stepped in with a calm update. "Your parents are still downstairs, and the board at Harrison Tech, your father's company, just called an emergency session. Their investors are spooked." I smiled. The same Harrison Tech that canceled my college fund, that once publicly questioned my startup's legitimacy. Their stock was already sliding as the market realized they'd backed the wrong side of the AI revolution. "Oh, and David's here," Jessica added. "He has a pitch he'd like to run by you." "Send him up," I said. "Let's show this family what real mentorship looks like." My phone lit up again. A message from Mom. "Please, Danielle, we need to talk, as a family." I typed one reply. "I'm in my office, top floor. Look for the building with my name on it. Let them come. Let them see." Because success isn't just about proving people wrong. It's about showing them exactly who you've been the entire time. And finally, I was ready to be seen. The morning sun hit the Novacor Systems logo crowning the skyline, bright, bold, and visible all the way from my parents' neighborhood. Let them look up. Sometimes, the quietest voice in the room is the one they should have been listening to all along. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told to stay quiet, I see you. I was you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what have you been quietly building while no one was watching? I want to hear your story. And if mine spoke to you, hit that subscribe button. Support the quiet ones who rise without applause. My advice, don't waste your voice trying to be heard by people committed to misunderstanding you. Build, grow, watch, and when the time is right, show them. Not for revenge, but for your own peace. You deserve to be seen.